Hey, this is Andy Jenkins, and if you're like me, you really feel like you should probably do some goal setting, like you should plan ahead. You realize that there is this wisdom in really sitting down and intentionally charting your course forward, but maybe something reacts inside of you when you get to this idea of goal setting. You hear people talk about it, and something just it just churns, yet the tension is you realize, hey, there's probably some wisdom in that. Okay, that's totally me. That might be you. If that's you and you're wanting to look at some way to move forward and really integrate all of life, not just business, not just fitness, not just your finances, not just your family, friends, fun, all these areas, but really just pull it all together and somehow manage a life that balances, that grows, that moves forward. I've got something for you. Here is a 4-episode series. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen, just so you can kind of get the bigger picture. In episode number 1 of the series, I'm going to talk about really this fundamental, foundational idea of where do we even begin? Because so often I think when we're setting goals, we just jump ahead and we just look straight at the action, look at the thing that we want to crush. And so really we're going to step back and we're going to look at what are the first things we really need to consider. In the second talk, we're going to talk about the soundtrack that plays in your head. What is it that you really see? Because so often the external world around you is really an overflow of what's happening on the inside. Talk number 3, we're going to talk about the law of the harvest and this idea of sowing and reaping and the concept that whatever you put your hand to, that will prosper. And the idea that you're always going to reap where you sow, what you sow, more than you sow, after you sow. That's really one of my favorite topics to discuss. And then finally, in talk number 4, we've got some pieces that will all pull together, and it's really going to be centered around this idea that to achieve big things, really, you got to start thinking small. Okay, so here's the talk. Listen in, and then stay to the end, because at the end, I've got some more information for you about some tools, some resources, some of them that you got to pay for, some that are completely free that are going to help you pull all this together. Here's the talk. There's this great analogy that really will probably help set all of this together for you. And it's this. The question is, how many of you out there can actually juggle? Now, think about that. Today I did this. I was in Zaxby's. I was on the way back from the beach, and I went up to the counter and came back and had 2 packs of Zax sauce. And I put it in my hand. And I have the ability to juggle. I'm not going to do it on video because that's a surefire way that I'll mess it up. Is I can throw one thing up and juggle with one hand 2 things in one hand. Okay? And of course, then I dropped one of them and it fell into the Zax, salad, all that, or the Zalad is what they call it. I'm not talking about juggle like that. I'm talking about I bet you could all juggle one thing. I know you'd say that's just catching. Just one thing up in the air, like with 2 hands, you just kind of toss it. That's called catching. If I said, how many of you can juggle 2? Not like I juggle with one hand, but just kind of swap here. You throw one, you toss the other to the other hand. Most people could juggle 2. If I said, how many of you can juggle 3, then I'm not going to try that right now. I'll drop it. I can do it, but I would be too distracted while I'm talking to you to achieve it without dropping it. And I'm sure that if I dropped it, it wouldn't be just one that I dropped. It would probably be all 3. Here's what I've seen. Everybody can juggle 1. Most people can juggle 2. I know you say, well, those aren't really juggling. They kind of are. Some people can juggle 3. Very few people can juggle 4. I think a tiny percentage of the people of the population could actually juggle 5 or more. And here's what I've noticed about juggling is when you juggle something, when you drop the juggle, In other words, when you fail, that's what it's called, right? When you fail on the juggle, you don't just drop the one that was kind of added to the mix, the one that threw it over the top to where you could no longer manage the capacity to juggle. Generally, at that point, you lose everything. They all fall to the ground. And in life, a lot of what we try to juggle happens the same way. We try to juggle family, career. We try to juggle getting involved, with some kind of extracurricular, whatever, some kind of big hobby. We try to juggle all that stuff, and the reality is sometimes we need to set some of those things down so that we can actually do the other things really well. Because if not, you don't just lose the thing that you added to the mix. All of these start to fall. And the reality is, if you drop handkerchiefs when you're juggling, no big deal. If you drop tennis balls, you got to chase them. But when you're juggling live stuff, it's almost like you're juggling glass, because if you drop your family, that could break. If you drop a business pursuit, that could crack. If you drop a kid, nobody wants to drop a kid on their head, right? That's equally damaging. Several years ago, when I was 5th, 6th, 7th grade, my dad played a lot of golf, and I used to go to the golf range with him. I remember going when I was as young as 6 and 7, and even driving the golf cart. Now, there would be adults there. He'd be playing with some of the guys that he worked with at the church. But I would go and just kind of drive the cart, and then sometimes when they played the back nine, I'd go drive some more. And sometimes I would just sit at the clubhouse with a man named Clifton that ran the clubhouse, and I would watch cartoons and draw and eat snacks, and then my dad would pay and settle up with Clifton when he got back. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. And then all of a sudden it stopped. And I remember one day, much later when I was in high school, asking my dad, "Hey, why did you stop playing golf? Why did we quit going?" And he explained it. He said, "Well, part of the fun of going was because you were always going. I was driving the cart, and then I started playing sports, and I was in junior high, and I'm wrestling, and I'm running track, and doing these other things, and so all of a sudden I'm doing that after school, and so I couldn't go with him. So he would have been going by himself, and he did for a little while, but then also I had a younger brother." And I have a younger sister. And so he said, I would just be investing time at the golf course that I could be spending coming to watch you at your wrestling tournaments, that I could be playing with them while you were at practice, that I could be doing other things with your mom. And so it just kind of became something that I really liked golf. I enjoyed it, but I liked you guys more. So I sat it down. Now consequently today, he is a probably not so good golfer. But I tell you this, his family adores him. His family loves him. Last year about this time, his mom and I celebrated. His mom, his wife, my mom, and him celebrated 50 years of marriage. And I remember all the grown kids and spouses and all coming together and taking them to dinner. It was in the middle of the holidays, so we weren't doing a 50th wedding party. We were going to do that in the spring, and then COVID hit. But he's not a good golfer. But he set that ball down, and consequently, he was able to juggle the other ones really, really well. Do you see? Sometimes there are certain things that you have to say no to so that you can say a more powerful yes to other things. So often we make no as a bad word, but when you say no to something, it is empowering because it means that you can give a better yes to something else. And in fact, if you say yes to something now, that means that something else down the road is going to have to be a no. If you've yesed golf, you got to know the wrestling tournament. If you've yesed golf, you've got to know just going on a car ride and going and run errands, crazy errands, whatever they are, to the shopping in the store and the grocery and all this kind of stuff that my dad still does with my mom. Because remember, the sacred often infuses just the ordinary of everyday life. If you say yes to something, then the latter is going to be a no, because you and I only have a certain amount of time every single day. That rhythm of creation keeps coming, that 6 and 1 and 6 and 1. And even if we try to maximize how much of it we work and produce and all of that, that clock keeps ticking. You just got 24 hours, right? So sometimes you gotta say no, because a no to something now is a yes for something later, and a yes to something now is a no for something later. Kind of like this. I just married this amazing woman, and when I married her, it was a no to any other potential woman out there. You see, and her vice versa. She says yes to me. Will you marry me? Yes. That's a no to anyone else in the future, any opportunity that might come up. It's a gamble, right? Pretty good one, but it's yes now means no later. No now means yes later. Whether it's something big, something small, you can only juggle so much. Now, here's another little thing to throw on it. Sometimes a no is a no not just forever, it's just a no for now, because you can't juggle it now. You can pick it up later on. I remember when I was a kid, and I learned this again from the lesson of my dad, doing the whole golf thing. I really loved bikes when I was a kid. And as I got older, I stopped riding bikes. But then as I became an adult, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to start riding bikes again. And so I got this really nice racing bike, like street racing bike. And I used to ride it all the time. The problem was, or not problem, the juggle was, at the time I had a young toddler in the house. And then wife was pregnant, so another baby's about to be born. And when I go ride this bike, sometimes riding a street bike, you'd go ride 50 miles. And so you're gone for 4 hours or so. By the time you load up, go meet the guys, pump up the tires, all that, go ride, get back, settle in, and then you got to take a shower and all this. So it would obliterate an entire Saturday morning. And then if I went riding early in the morning, I'd be so tired in the evening after work that it just wasn't a lot of quality time with the girls. And so cycling had to become a no, but not a no forever. It became a no for now, but not a no for later. So consequently, in the last year, all my kids are older now, and they're in a much different season of life. It's been about 16, 17 years of riding a bike. Finally, I picked up a bike again. I bought a new bike. And so this past week, I spent a lot of time riding a bike back and forth down 38, just riding. And I've had the opportunity to do that and do some different events. Sometimes it's a no for now, but not for later. Sometimes the business is a no for now, not for later. Sometimes the hobby is a no for now, not for later. Sometimes what you're doing, even if you're wanting to lose weight, might be a no for now, not for later. Sometimes certain things that you're wanting to do, going out with friends, or certain fun that you want to do is a no for now, not for later. Sometimes you have to postpone the yes so that you can focus on something else. Let me give you an example. And I don't know that we communicated this one very well, but this would be something that I thought about this last week. I remember growing up in the Southern Baptist Church. So maybe you raise your hand if you were there. They taught this thing when I was in the youth group. It was the movement True Love Waits. What they were trying to do is point to the idea that sex, that oneness, physical intimacy with a man and a woman was something to be celebrated. It was something to be enjoyed. It was a gift of God. It was just while you were in high school, while you were single, it was a no. What they meant was no for now, big yes for later. Incredible yes for later. Now, sometimes I think they tainted it and skewed it in such a way, because they made it so taboo that we were afraid, right? People were going all in, or people were afraid. And then even after marriage, people were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm kind of afraid. What do I?" Okay, it was a no for now, sex, not a no for later. Okay, and maybe that helps you start clarifying. Sometimes it's a no for now, not for later. Let me give you another concept. Kind of throwing a couple concepts at you that are going to, I think, help you. Several years ago, I worked with my cousin He was the director of operations. Well, I was the executive director at a nonprofit. He was about 8 years younger than me, super smart, used to run inventory here up at the local Summit Apple retailer. And so, I mean, he knew his stuff. Like he was wise, practically speaking, well beyond his years. And when he was on a monthly basis giving reviews to his Apple employees there, that he oversaw a team of 40 or 50 different people that just worked under him, aside from the others that worked in the store, he always had this thing that was called a start, stop, and continue. Start, stop, continue. Start, stop, continue. And he would just say, hey, what are some things that you need to start doing that you haven't been doing? What are some things that you need to stop doing, meaning balls you need to set down? What are some things that are going great that you just need to continue doing? And it became a great metaphor whereby I could understand and think about this whole juggling thing in life, going, okay, there are some balls I need to pick up. So, I recently got married. Like, there's this new marriage ball. Like that's got to go into the mix. Like, I got to start. But in order to do that one really well, I probably have to stop something. Does that make sense? In order to make time for it. There are other things. Start, stop, and stop might be a no permanently. It also might just be a no for now, not a no for later. Something could pick up a yes later on as time and situations and circumstances allow. Start, stop, continue. And this might be a question that you just ask yourself is, what are some things that I need to start doing if I have certain goals, if I have certain dreams, if I have certain things that are the best case scenario in my family life and my faith life? Maybe I need to start picking up the Bible. Well, that start may need to stop sleeping in. Or I need to continue waking up. I just need to redirect my time. I need to start eating better. I need to stop drinking certain things or eating certain things. Start, stop, continue. Maybe you need to continue exercising, but you need to start eating in a different way, or need to start going to bed at a certain time. You need to start, stop, continue to start greeting my kids when they come in from school in the evening. Start putting down my cell phone. Stop flipping through the television. Stop watching television in the evening. Here's the beautiful thing, is the answers to all this can be different for each of us. In fact, my answers can totally contradict yours, and yours can totally contradict mine, because we have different dreams and different goals, or different places, right? We can celebrate that with each other and continue making each other better, pushing each other to be all that you're designed to be and all I'm designed to be, knowing that there's a different design on each of our lives. Do you see that? And knowing that sometimes life situations and circumstances kind of change what each of us might choose to do. Knowing that success leaves clues, like we talked about in a previous talk. Knowing about this law that's hardwired into creation about sowing and reaping what you sowed. We know that we can continue moving ahead, even with different answers on that. Let me give you another concept related to all of that. And it's this one about your calendar. I think that your calendar is a currency. Let me give you this analogy. If I get on here and log on, I've got access to my online banking right here. And if I got it, I'm not going to log in and hold it up to the screen. But if I did, and I just got here and said, okay, let me just hold this and clear my notifications. But if I held up my online banking right there, and I just showed it to you and looked at it, you could look right there and you could see really what's important to me based on looking at my digital check register. And you would see that one of the things that's important to me is paying the power bill every single month. I keep the lights on at the house. You'd see my cell phone bill. It's important to me that I keep connected. You'd see it's important that I pay for the Wi-Fi, that I pay for certain subscriptions that we have online to be able to watch certain things. You'd see that paying all the bills associated with this house is important. You'd see that in the last year, renovating the house has been really important because I spent a lot of money on that. Because the reality is we don't really spend money on things that don't matter to us. And you might go, well, I spend money on taxes, and that's like like, that doesn't matter. Well, it's important for you to stay out of jail, so you pay your taxes, right? So there's always some connection where we go, hey, our checkbook really reveals what's important. I think in the same way, your calendar does the exact same thing. And if you don't have a calendar, it just kind of shows that you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. So your calendar shows like where you are committed to investing and stewarding your time. And your time is a currency. In fact, the reality is your time may be a more valuable currency than the money that you have, because the money, if you lose it, I mean, golly, I've lost everything, got down to less than $100 in the checking account before, and then had to like start all the way over and build it back up. Okay, so your currency. I mean, I've been bankrupt before. Okay, had to climb my way out of that whole scenario. I mean, the reality is you can always find ways to make more money. You can always earn more time. Nobody's yet figured out how to like reclaim that. Nobody's figured out how to go get more. So your time and how you steward it is a currency. And so here's what I'm getting at on that is really when something's not working in marriage, and there are other factors there. So this isn't to shame and blame. This is just saying, hey, this is one thing to check. When things aren't working with the kids, when things aren't working in your business, things aren't working with your fitness, things aren't working in your faith life. You feel really remote and distant from just everything that you once kind of spiritually felt. One of the first places to look is your calendar. Now, again, there are some things that are always outside of our control. Back to the law of sowing and reaping. You control what you can control. Is like you put in the time and the work is one of the things. There's always other factors. Other people always influence and weigh in, and what others do always kind of can affect that. But look and see if you've actually calendared. So the marriage is kind of rocky. Have you calendared? And I mean like written in, this is when me and she are spending some, or me and he, depending on who you are spending some time together. Faith life, is there time that's set in the morning? Like I know in the mornings I'm going to get up and I'm going to go exercise most every single morning. And when I get up and walk through that living room right there, Beth's going to be on that couch reading her Bible, curled up, probably with coffee, usually with a blanket, just kind of like balled up, cozy, doing her thing. Because that's the time. That's the investment, okay? In other words, like, let's just be raw about it. Like, no whining about dreams that don't get realized if you haven't put the time in. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means like, hey, maybe it's not your dream. I remember in the early days of growing a Young Living essential oils business, home-based business, there'd be people who are like, I want to do it. I don't know why I'm not growing. And then every single time we had a convention, every single time there was an event that they could go to that was local, they didn't even have to spend a lot of travel money and take a week of vacation to go. They could just show up for a couple hours on a Saturday. Like they'd be like, I got something else. It's been a long week. I'm tired. What? Well, maybe if you're not willing to calendar it, that's not your dream. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just means, hey, there's probably another ball that you want to juggle. Or if you're going to juggle this, you need to set something down so that you can actually put on it. I talk to people all the time. Every single month, somebody reaches out and says, hey, man, can I pick your brain? I've just been wanting to write a book. And I'll talk to them. And then 3 months later, they still haven't done thing one that I told them that they can do. I mean, I've written 15, 20 books. I know how to write one. They just doesn't mean they're a bad person. Just means, hey, maybe there's something else that they're gifted and called to do. There's something else that is in their ordinary field of play that could infuse and blur the sacred and secular. Something else that they're designed and called to do. Maybe as I close out, let me give you a couple more analogies. A couple years ago, I remember it was probably 2014. It was the first convention for a home-based business I'd ever gone to. Young Living Essential Oils, John Maxwell, the leadership guru, is up there on the stage. And he says something like this. He says, hey, if I take 5 licks with an axe on that tree out there, Will that tree fall? And everybody in the crowd, there's like 6,000 people there at the time. Like, so that business has really grown since then. Everybody in the crowd, like 6,000 people, were like, no way, 5 licks, not gonna knock down a tree. And he says, well, what about like if I go out there every single day and I just take 5 licks? If every single day I get up and I take 5 whacks with the axe on that tree, will that tree eventually fall? And everybody's like, yeah, I think it would. How long will it take? Everybody's like, well, I don't know. It depends on how much skill you have and how hard you hit and how sharp the axe is and all these other factors. But the reality is, if I take 5 licks every single day, he said, it'll fall. And everybody agrees. If you show up every single day and do something small and consistent, incrementally, over time, something that doesn't jack up and do the whole day. Because, right, like we got diapers to change and meals to cook, and we've got cars to drive to carpools and sports to attend, and we got church to go to in some way, and we've got families to raise. So that means we got laundry to do and dishes to wash, and we got houses to clean, and we got, just fill in the blanks. So we still got to earn money, and we still got still all the stuff. Got to cut the grass. But when there are all these things that are important, that are part of your dream, part of the destiny that's upon you, if you show up every single day and just do the 5 little licks, remember what we said about incremental change over time, it's exponential. It's not about like doing the huge. It's about seeing the huge and seeing the big picture, but doing the little things every single day. Seeing the big tree that you want to fall, but every day showing up. And here's the deal. If you don't show up today, you can't redo today's thing tomorrow. Tomorrow you just get to do tomorrow's. So it becomes important every single day. If the goal is fitness, it's to exercise a little bit every single day. If the goal is faith, it's to read a little bit and pray a little bit every single day. Just what can I do? Not to become a monk overnight, but to just make this area of life a little bit better. If it's a sizzling, smoking hot marriage, it's just what do I do to focus on my spouse a little bit more, to make this a little bit more better today. Maybe it's a word, a touch. It's a thing that you do to put the cell phone down and have a conversation and pay just complete attention for the moment, right? Every single day. If it's something with the kids, maybe it's something like that's one of the licks of the axe. So maybe the thing for you is to figure out what are those small repeating actions that you do every single day. Scientists, it had to be guys, they actually did, because women would never do this. They would do something far more important. They actually ran an experiment in San Francisco, I believe it was several years ago, and discovered that if you have a little domino and you push that domino over, that domino and the weight of it will knock over a domino 50% bigger. And then that domino will knock over a domino 50% bigger. That domino will knock it over 50% bigger. And a small thing moving, call it the butterfly effect, right? It will just knock over and eventually topple something massive. We tried it. We actually replicated the experiment. So a couple years ago, one of the men's events that I was speaking at, the advance is what we called it, we actually made a little domino. And then I made a wooden domino that was about 6 inches big, and then one that was 9 inches, and then one that was about 15, and then one that was about 30 inches, so I didn't really keep up with the 50% bigger. So they kept escalating. Finally, I had one that was 8 feet tall. And so just across the stage, like eventually, like I pushed it, and it was just kind of slow. You don't know if it's going to go, but they suddenly, and everybody was so excited. Like all the guys stood up and started clapping because we knocked over the dominoes. Here's the point: it's every single day the 5 licks are that little small thing, and you show up and you do the small thing. You guys have seen the graphic. We've posted it on our social channels where there's an iceberg. Even if you haven't seen ours, you've seen it before. And the iceberg's like 10% visible above the surface of the water, 90% is below the water, and everybody talks about that 10% above the water is the visible success, and underneath the water is the invisible struggle and failure and pain and showing up when you're tired and long hours and being alone and being isolated and all these other things like that are just, you show up. I finally figured it out myself, because so often, like, I like doing stuff like I'm doing right now on camera and on microphone and teaching, but like I've realized that like so many things that I have to do for work, it's just a matter of showing up and sitting in that desk chair for about 3 to 4 hours solid. Not in meetings, not phone conversations, not doing something fun or running around or talking and like, it's actually sitting solitary in the chair 3 to 4 hours every single Monday through Friday, just sitting in the chair. And if I do that, the ball moves down the field. And if you figure out what your version is of that little domino, your version of sitting in the chair, your version of going underwater, under the iceberg, every single day, over time, incremental change will be phenomenal. You see? Circle back to the beginning. That means juggling. Might have to set some down so you can pick some up. Might have to start, stop, continue. Might have to sell some things, no forever. Might have to sell some things, no, just for now, not for later. Managing the most valuable currency that you have that nobody else has. The one currency that you have that you can't make more of. Time. You see, you have yours, I have mine. All equal. Got it? Okay, there you have it. I hope that you got something beneficial from that you can take, that you can apply right now in multiple areas of life. Let me tell you about 2 tools that I've got for you. One of them is paid, one of them is absolutely free. The first one is the paid, and you can find links to these each, by the way, in the show notes right here of this talk, whatever platform it is that you're listening from. There is it's a new hardback. It's like a moleskin-like hardback, 440 pages. It is the Advanced Planner. Now, a few years ago, I used to lead a men's event, and we did it twice a year, and it was actually known as the Advance. Many of you that listen in have been to that event before, or you had husbands that went to that event, spouses, boyfriends, whoever that went to that, wrote the curriculum for that. In fact, you can get the book. I'll put the link to it in the show notes, where I've piled in all of the information that we used to teach at that event. It was incredible. And along the way, I created this resource, created this life planner. It was a calendar, and we never really published it. We gave away some paperback versions at the event to really help people sync up with a lot of the life management, life planning, time management, goal setting. There's that term again. All of those tools that we were pulling together, and we never really published it until just this last year with Oily App. Ernie Yarbrough and I were talking with Dr. Jim Bob Hackerton and some other people that we work with, and we had produced a planner for women that was, spiral bound, that looked pretty. It was beautiful, and you can check the website there if that is something that interests you. But we thought, man, we've got to have a tool for guys, and we had published the advanced books there. It had published an abbreviated version, done some online courses, and just kind of thought, man, now is the time. And selfishly, I wanted a planner that I could use. And so we just resurrected that old project, put it back together, and it is available. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it is 2 pages per day that will help you plan. And then inside the same planner, it has 2 pages where you kind of open it up, and it has this journaling. It also has guided questions that really help you kind of reflect on the day. I did this for about a quarter just to test drive it, and the results that I got were amazing, especially in light of the minimal amount of time that it took. It kept everything organized. 'Cause that was another thing too. People say, well, you should journal. Well, ironically, I write. That's one of the things I do professionally to earn money, to kind of keep my keep. But I can't stand journaling, but I got all this in a tool and it works fabulously. So I'm going to put a link down where you can log on, look at that if that's a tool that would interest you. It's undated, so you could literally get it shipped to you and start it immediately, just dating the pages. And there are options where you can buy it by the single, which would last you for 3 months, or take a shot at it and just go all in and get a discount and do it for an entire year. And it looks exquisite. It's fabulous. Pen loop, rubber band, 2 ribbon markers, all that kind of stuff. If you're not there yet and you just need a free tool to get started, if you'll follow the link down in the show notes, I've got a freebie for you. I've got the first few pages of that planner where you can download them absolutely free. And you will, once you've heard the 4 talks in this series, you'll be able to start filling out some things, looking ahead, planning, and you'll see if that's a tool that's good for you, or if it's not. And shoot, you can just download that PDF and you could make copies or do whatever you need to do and toss that thing in a 3-ring binder and just kind of drive it on your own. Maybe you don't want to go in with the hardback yet. Maybe you just kind of want to do spiral bound or use one of those TUL binders that they have like at Office Depot and Staples and all these places where you can remove the paper and put it back in. Hey, if that's you, take the tool absolutely free. We just want to see you do better. As we say often, you are created for something extraordinary, for something supernatural. Don't settle for normal when you are made for super normal. Don't even know if that's a word. Don't settle for natural when within your reach is the supernatural. Don't settle for a life that's ordinary when you were made for extraordinary. Until next time, grace, peace. May the Lord bless you, keep you, make His face shine upon you. I will see you again really soon.